Storytelling Day. So happy World Storytelling Day. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, an assembled company, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. And this evening for 1 hour, so I won't drag this out because we've only got an hour to get everyone on. We've got we're having Evita is hosting
Sort of.
this celebration of the World Storytelling Cafe at the World Storytelling the World Storytelling Day at the World Storytelling Cafe, and we're getting in some really deep water. And before I sink any deeper, I'm going to hand over to Evita.
Salam and hello, everybody. A total newbie at hosting a meeting, so thank you to Baba C. If Waleed could make Baba C or John Baba C a co-host, so he will catch me when needed. And I have been lucky to tell some stories today in a park, but I feel very honored to have Baba C, John, Keith. Who else is here? Waleed, Hansjörg. Show yourself, Baba C, and everyone here. And because we are a bit time poor, some people have to jump ship into the deep water, and that is Baba C to go to the Irish section of this. So Baba C, would you like to go first?
No, but
Now I put him. Now he's in deep water, isn't
Baden said that he had to jump off soon. So wouldn't it be more beneficiary to let Baden go first? Because he has to leave soon.
Yeah. Baden. I meant Baden. Gosh, sorry.
I know.
Obviously,
No, we have to finish the whole meeting by 7.
Okay.
Because we're going over to Liz then, or some people are going over to Liz. We don't want to cross over to Liz. So, Bubba C, it's perfectly fine for you to go first because Baden will wait.
No, I think Baden was going. I wasn't meant. My brain thought Baden. My mouth said Baba C. Baden, start swimming.
Okay. This is a version of a story called. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. This is a version of a story called "The Woman Who Fooled the Devil." And I was telling a friend of mine, and he said, "Oh, that reminds me of this story." And as some of you may know, the rivalry between the West Indian territories and the different islands is fierce, really fierce. So one day I'm at home in Antigua, and I'm chilling out on the beach, and there's these two fishermen to my right, and they're having this really stupid argument. There's a Guyanese guy and a Jamaican guy. There's always a Jamaican guy. And the Jamaican saying, "Man, Jamaica's the best place in the Caribbean, man. And we invent not one, not two, but 6 different types of music." And he started reeling them off, rock steady, blue beat, ska, reggae, raga, and he's on and he's going. The Guyanese guy is saying to him, "Look, Guyana's the best place because we're not even an island. We're part of South America. We're on a continent, so we're better than you." And then the Bajan starts talking about the athletics and Usain Bolt and and it's going on, and they're getting on my nerves, really getting on my nerves. So when I couldn't take it anymore, I walked over to them and I said, "Look, you're saying you're better than him, he's better than you. Everybody knows the best man is the man who can fool the devil." I shouldn't have said that. "The Jamaican man, if the devil come here, I send him straight back where he come from." And the Guyanese one started, "Satan think he bad. If Satan meet me on a dark night, Satan run." And so I said, "All right, look. So you guys are saying that you could outsmart the devil. That's what you're trying to tell me." They say, "Yes." And so said, what they say? "Say his name and he shall appear." Man, there was one bolt of lightning and some thunder that shook the ground. And middle of the afternoon, on a hot sunny day in Antigua, it went black like midnight. In fact, it was more like 12:05. It was that dark. And when the smoke cleared and there he was standing right in the middle of us, the Prince of Darkness himself. And he said, any one of you who thinks you can actually outsmart me, do it. And I will give you riches beyond your wildest dreams. But if you don't manage to do it, I will reach into your chest, rip out your heart, and I'll take your soul down to the depths of hell. Now you think that would have put them off, right? But no. Now, Guyanese people have a thing about gold. I don't know what it is. And the Guyanese fella, on his little finger, he had a gleaming gold ring. And he said, all right, come. He got in his boat and he rowed out to sea, right out to where the horizon meets the sky, you know, where you can't tell the difference between the two. And when he got there, he leaned over the side of the boat and he pulled off the ring and he dropped it in the water, and that ring disappeared down into the murky depths where nobody and nothing could see. And then he rowed back to land and he stepped out on the sand, boasting, I said, yes, you go and find that ring. And the devil turned to him and went so, held out his hand. He said, what? This ring? And he did, but he was as good as his word, you know. He reached his hand in the man's chest, rip out his heart. And now we hear, the man disappeared before our eyes. You'd think that would have put off the Jamaican, right? No. The Jamaicans have a thing when they want to start a fight. They come and they say, hey, stick a pin, stick a pin. The Jamaican produced a safety pin, a tiny safety pin, got in his boat, rowed out to where the sky meets the sea, and he dropped that pin over the side of the boat. Disappeared in, it hadn't even gone a couple of feet, you couldn't see it. Never mind when it reached the very bottom. Came back to shore, stepped out. He said to Satan, right, now you go and find that. Satan said, what? And take the pin and juke him with it. And then, you know the rest, right? So I'm standing up there and Satan looking at me and saying, you fancy having a go? I said, yeah, man. I'd been drinking a bottle of Red Stripe, right? So I swallowed the rest of the Red Stripe. I walked down to the sea. I bent down. I filled up the bottle halfway. I said, you see the seawater in this bottle? All right. I'm going to throw it away. And you, if you can find it and bring it back to me, then you're definitely a better man. And he stood there, looked at me with his mouth open. And that's a sight to behold, Satan with his mouth open. I just turned the bottle upside down, poured the water back in the ocean. He shook his head and he walked away. And if y'all think I'm lying, remember he said he was going to make me wealthy beyond my wildest dreams, you know. Well, if there's one thing you've learned here today, the devil is not to be trusted, because I'm still as poor as I ever was. Thank you.
Oh, this is a hard one to follow. That was hilarious. Thank you so much. Wow. I'm looking over my shoulders. I'm a bit worried. Baba C, will you go next?
Sure. Baden, I love your devil story. We have a worse story, but I won't mention his name. But let's just say I won't mention his name. Starts with a T. All right. So I had 3 stories that I was considering. One I got rid of because I had to sing Michael row the boat ashore. And I didn't want to think I didn't want him to think that was a dig at him. So I eliminated that story. So
that's all my nightmares from school.
And I understand. In my not so secret identity, my last name is Calendar. And when I was in junior high, the kids would joke and say, "Oh, you're a calendar. You're weak." I said, "Yeah, but I always have a date." That shut them right down. Anyhow, on with the story. So in this story, it's about a Nazi. And there are three things Anansi loves to do. He loves to eat, he loves to eat, he loves to eat, and he loves to eat some more. Yeah, I know what I just said. There are three things Anansi loves to do. He loves to eat, he loves to eat, he loves to eat, and he loves to eat some more. Anansi was either eating, just finished eating, or was about to eat. But Anansi was lazy. He was so lazy he didn't even cast a shadow. That's how lazy he was. But Anansi, his favorite food in the whole wide world was fish. He loved himself some fish. Baked, broiled, fried. He just loved fish. But he had no money. He was trying to figure out how to get some money so he could go into town and buy some fish. Well, as he was walking along the beach, I have to be very careful when I say that word. When he was walking along the beach, he saw a fisherman mending his nets. And he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And the fisherman said, "I'm mending my nets so I can go fishing." And Nancy said, "Fishing? Oh, fish." He said, "Oh, well, I can help you." Now, the fisherman knew Anansi did not like to work. He said, "No, Anansi, I'll do this. You just sit over there and get tired." And Anansi kept thinking about all the wonderful fish he could eat. And he had no time for this fisherman's games. He said, "I have no time for your games. I will mend those nets, and you sit over there under that tree and you get tired." But no, you get tired. So Anansi sat down and started mending the nets. Now you can see I'm a city boy because I don't know how to mend a fishing net. All right. So by the end of the day, Anansi had mended the nets, but it was too late to go fishing. So the fisherman said, "Oh, Anansi, the nets you've done so well. I will see you tomorrow morning. And when we get here tomorrow morning, I will row out to cast the nets, and you can sit here and get tired." Anansi thought about all that wonderful fish he wanted to eat. He said, "No, I don't have time for your games. I will row the boat out and cast the nets, and you sit there and you get tired, you lazy, lazy man." And so the next day, Anansi him get up. He go down to the beach. He see the fisherman. He snatched the nets, throw him in the boat, grabbed the oar, and told him, "You sit over there and you get tired while I go out and cast these nets and fish all day." But Anansi, "No, now let's put the discussion." So the fisherman sat under the tree. I never understood where this tree came from on the beach, but that's another story. He sat under the tree, and Anansi him rowed. I'm not going to make the obvious pun. He rowed, and he got out in the middle of the river, and he cast the net, and he sat, and he sat, and he waited, and he waited, and he waited. Finally, he pulled the net in, and it was full of fishes. Oh, it was just so full of fish. It was full of fish. And Anansi kept thinking of all the fish he was going to eat. Oh, he was going to eat all the fish. Yes. And he pulled it in, and he rowed back. Now, there's still some daylight left, and he told the fisherman, "There's the fish. Give me my money." Fisherman said, "Oh, Nancy, we have to take the fish into town. And when we get there, I will sell the fish, and you can sit on the side and get and just get tired. And I will sell the fish." "No, I'm tired of your games. We are going to go to town, and when we get there, I will sell the fish, and you will give me the money so I can buy what I want to eat most in the world." "Well, if you insist." And so they got in the cart and they went to town. And Anansi sold all, he sold all the fish. I was going to make a scale joke, but I'm not going to go there. He sold all the fish. In fact, he sold so much fish that I could say this story is now finished, but I'm not going to say that. And the fisherman gave him his gold coins. And Anansi looked at the gold coins. He was so happy. He was so happy. He was so happy. Now he could buy the fish he wanted to eat. He could buy. Oh, they just sold all the fish. There was no fish for Anansi to buy. And working all that hard for the last couple of days finally caught up with him. And he sat down because he's so tired. He's so tired. He's so tired. And the fisherman went home to fish another day. Asante.
Wonderful. Thank you, Baba C. Well, John, do you want to go next or should I? Because there's a net in my story as well.
Yeah, I'll do a really quick one. It's just the
Okay.
bare bones,
The
because
bear.
we know about the bare bones at the bottom of the sea. There was a Dutch sailor, and he had been with the king's fleet, and he'd been in many battles. And he'd got his leg blown off, and he was sitting there with a peg leg, and he'd got a medal from the king, and he'd sat around the bars all night, and he was just boasting and showing off his medals, and everyone got kind of fed up with him and started making fun of him. And he got to the point where he's going, I wish the devil was here. He'd make shoots. He'd soon sort you lot out. Well, you know, like Baden said, if you ask for the devil going to appear. And, so the devil appears, and he just knocks everyone out in the bar. I mean, there are bodies everywhere. And so anyway, he says to the sailor afterwards, he said, now I've done you a favor. You're mine. And he said, but I'll give you a chance. If you can give me something I can't do. Now, we know these devil stories because, you know, Baden managed it. But it hasn't worked for him. And so I'll give you three chances. And the old sailor said, well, can you build me a ladder that goes from the sea to those clouds? And as quick as a flash, there was a ladder that went from the sea to the clouds. Old sailor looks and said, now, can you make all the creatures of the sea climb that ladder? And before he could blink, there were fish bloop, 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 up the ladder. There were crabs up the ladder. There was even the whale, you know, kind of spatting everyone on the way up, sort of out of its spout. Old sailor's looking there thinking, what am I going to do? I've only got one chance left. And he takes his pipe and he blows a smoke ring. And he blows another smoke ring. And after much thought and much consideration, which is a very long time, he turned to the devil. He said, can you take one of those smoke rings and wear it as a collar around your neck? Because it was in those days, those big rough collars. By rough, I don't mean rough, street fighting rough. I mean the rough. And the devil reached out and he took one of those rings and it broke up in his hands. And he reached out and he took another ring. It broke up in his hand, and on and on and on and on. And the devil was getting more and more and more and more annoyed. And suddenly there's a whirlwind. And there's a great spout of water. And the devil disappears. And that old sailor, he went back to the bar, poured himself a drink, told the same old stories over and over again, and this time no one took the mickey out of him. I think I stayed with him in time. Evita, I think you should. Evita, you've done all the work for this show, so We'd
No.
like to hear a story from
Not really. Just pointing fingers and calling names. So I'll leave out the preamble. Let's go to somewhere in between times, like long ago, but not that long ago. Let's go to Australia. In a valley, not far from where I lived, there was a beautiful, beautiful green valley, and a river meandered right through the hills, and it gurgled contently. That river was really, really important to the villages on both sides of the river, for they used it for transport, they used it for fishing and food, and of course the children used it for playing. Every morning the children would race down and plunge into that river and have fun. Now there was a young girl, Anisha by name. She liked to be first. And one morning, again, she just raced down to have that moment by the river by herself and smell it and enjoy it. But when she arrived, she sensed something had changed. She scooped up some water and she sniffed it. Blah. She looked, and the river looked murky. The river looked brown. Now Anisha got such a shock that she decided she must get help for the river, and she raced straight to the village circle, where all the elders were sitting in a circle as they do. As soon as she arrived, a big man got up and bellowed, "Hey, what is this? Children bursting into our circle when we're discussing important village business? Be off and do something that children do, like play or something." Well, Anisha was sad. Anisha was horrified, so she ran home and she woke her brother, which I can tell you is no mean feat when you have an older brother. She shook him and took him down to the river. And he too, Joda, he saw that the river was not looking very well. She said, "I told the elders." "Wait," said Joda. "Anisha, you told the elders?" I did, she said. He said, "Oh, yeah, let me ask you, how did you tell the elders? Did you approach the circle with respect? Did you ask permission to speak?" Sort of, said Anisha, but of course she hadn't. "Let me help you," said Joda, and together the children went back to the circle. "Oh, more children," said the big man, "coming here, interrupting important village business." "Wait, please, elders. Permission to speak," said Joda. "My sister has an important message to you." "Oh, no, be off, be off. We do not need children." But then an old lady got up on her stick and she held up her hand and she said, "Children are people of our village too. Let the child speak." And Anisha started. Slow enough, she bowed respectfully and she said, "Dear elders, I've just been to the river. It is not looking very well. In fact, it is sick. It is terrible. Something is wrong. We have to help. We have to help." The elders all stared at her, but the old lady nodded. "'Tis so. 'Tis so. That river is not good. But no one in this circle has the answer. Be the whales that know what to do." Well, Anisha fortunately remembered to bow respectfully, and off she ran to gather all the village children. "We need to help this river," she said. Oh, how those children worked. They chopped bamboo, they pulled vines, and then they fashioned a raft. And let me tell you something, my friends. The raft was big enough to fit every able child onto it. And off they set together to go down the river to the sea. The river is flowing, flowing and flowing. The river is flowing down to the sea. Mother Earth, carry me, your child I will always be. Mother Earth, carry me down to the sea. And eventually the children did arrive at the river mouth. They pulled that heavy raft onto the sandbank and collapsed in a heap. But Anisha wanted none of that. "Quick, quick, come, let's go to the beach." And the children went to the beach and they looked out. They looked out into deep blue sea. "I can't see anything," said someone. "Shh," she said, "wait. hold hands. And all the children lined up the beach, held hands, and they looked out at the deep blue sea. When a little fella cried out, "There she blows!" And there she did, and another one and another one. Whales kept breaching, whales kept flapping their big tails, and whales began to sing, ooh, ooh, ooh. The children just stood there and listened. And then, with a last wave of a fluke, the whales disappeared back into the deep blue sea. Well, great, said Judder. That was very beautiful. But I've got no idea what they said. I do, said Anisha. I do. Come on, children. And she whispered to them what needed to be done. This time, my friends, it took the children 3 days to get back home, because at every village on both sides, they gathered the elders and the children and told them the secret of the whales. When they arrived home, they had a well-deserved sleep. But the very next morning, little Anisha walked up to the top of the hill, and she looked down. She made herself as tall as possible, and she saw that on both banks, on both sides of the river, villagers had lined up. So Anisha began to sing. She sang to all of you, by the way. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean, hoof and horn, all that dies shall be reborn, fire and rain, all that dies shall live again. And as Anisha sang, a golden thread came out of her mouth, and she sang across the river to Manuela. And Manuela sang over to Keith, and Keith, being Keith, sang over to the other side, to the other Keith, who sang to Norman, who sang to Baba C, who sang to Baden, who sang to John. And John, he sang, he bellowed, and a big thread went out. And do you know what? These villagers had sang up a great big golden net. Come on over, said Anisha, and the people on the opposite bank brought their side of the net over. They waded, they swam, and they paddled. Are you ready? I need your help now. Pull that net in. Come on, heave, ho, heave, ho, heave, ho. And with a groan, that net rolled onto the riverbank and dissipated. But in its stead, there was a pile of rubbish. Now, there are no children here, but I asked the children, what was in that pile of rubbish? There was a toilet, believe it or not. There were drums with skulls, rusty cars, shopping trolley, plastic bags. You get my drift. The big man from the morning, you remember him well. He said, "Ha! I knew listening to children was absolute nonsense. Now we are left with a mountain of rubbish as tall as this hill. What are we going to do?" But Anisha knew what to do. Come on, children, you know. And the children held hands. All the children from all the villages took each other by the hands, and they made a circle around this smelly big heap of rubbish. And Anisha called out, "Bring on the drums!" And the drums started beating, and the children started dancing. "Faster," said Anisha. The drums went faster, the children went faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and the collars of their clothes began to swirl and swirl and swirl. And then something happened that can only happen in stories. Boom! All of a sudden, the heap of rubbish had disappeared. The river murmured contently. The stars twinkled. And the old lady, leaning on her stick, said, "Sometimes just sometimes we should listen to our children. And with that, she turned around into her hut and closed the door. The river is flowing down to the sea. Thank you. So now, Keith or Keith? John, help me out here.
You want to tell a story?
Which,
Unmute.
well, a round of applause for Evita. That was a beautiful story. Right. And I think what she's trying to say, because she's trying to roll on really quick, we're going to Keith next. So, Keith, can you unmute yourself and tell us a story?
Which Keith? Which Keith, John?
Which
We got two. We got
Oh, we got two Keiths. Okay. So you want me to choose? You want me to choose between the two Keiths? We'll go Keith in Wolverhampton, then we'll go Keith in Lincolnshire. Are both the Keiths happy with that order?
They indicate they are.
So Keith in Wolverhampton, tell your story.
Here I am, and I'd like to tell you the story of the perfect wife. Now, this story took place back in time, way back in time, where people travelled very little. They stayed where they were. And there's a village near Wolverhampton, about 10 miles away, called Treasel. And two lads in Treasel, at the end of the year, would have a chat about what's gone on in the year, and they would talk about what they'd like to do in the following year. Today, we'd call them aspirational targets. On one occasion, this young man said to his friend, this year, I'm going to find the perfect wife. And his friend said, "Ooh, good luck with that. And how are you going to know?" He said, "Well, it's easy. She's got to be beautiful. She's got to be interesting, and she's got to be nice." And the following year they met up, and he said, "How'd you get on?" He said, "Well, in Treasel I met this girl. She was so beautiful that it turned men's heads as she walked past. But she wasn't very interesting. We spent evenings not saying a word. And I was happy, to be quite honest, when they finished." So his friend said, "Well, perhaps you should go further afield. Perhaps you should go to Wolverhampton." And he said, well, he'd heard of Wolverhampton. His dad had been there once, but it seemed like a long way away. He said, "Well, come on, it's worth a try. Perfect wife, that's what you're after." He said, "Okay, I'll try." And he came back the following year, and his friend said, "How'd you get on?" He said, "Well, I met this girl in Wolverhampton. She was so beautiful that men sitting in bars would put their drink down and watch her walk past. Interesting. She'd read a book. She talked about it. She told me things I didn't even know." And his friend said, "She wasn't very nice. She only thought about herself and never mentioned anybody else at all." And his friend, "Oh, okay. Tell you what, why don't you try Birmingham?" Now, Birmingham was like another planet. Great massive factories. He'd never been to Birmingham, and he didn't know anyone who'd been to Birmingham. But, well, he was searching for the perfect wife. So off he went. And the following year, there he is with his friend. And his friend says, "Well, what happened this time?" He said, "I met this girl." He said, "She's so beautiful that men driving cars would stop just to watch her walk by. Interesting. She'd read a book, she'd been to the theatre. We spoke of so many things. It was wonderful, so exciting, and nice. She never thought of herself. She only wanted to help other people." And his friend said, "So what's wrong now?" And he said, "Well, unfortunately, she's looking for the perfect husband." Thank you.
Oh, wonderful.
Beautiful, beautiful. Then he seriously was in deep water. So now I'm going over to
Was.
Keith. Now, for those that don't know Lincolnshire, Lincolnshire is flat. In fact, with global warming, Lincolnshire will soon be underwater, and parts of it previously were underwater. So we're going to the deep water of Keith in Lincolnshire.
Yeah, John, that's true of the fens and the marshes, but there is some rolling chalk hills that run right through the middle of Lincolnshire. They're not very high, but I live in the middle of them, and they disappear into the Humber and then arise again in Yorkshire as the Yorkshire Wolds. But so it's
It
not
would appear
completely
you're
flat.
safe then, Keith.
It's not. It's not completely flat, but certainly around the edges, it's certainly flat and on the seaside. Right, well, a fortnight ago it was World Book Day, and I had the privilege of going to a junior school and telling stories. And today is the World Storytelling Day. I had the privilege of going to a home for the elderly and telling some of the same stories. So whether you're 8 or 80, everybody loves a story. Well, it's not only World Storytelling Day, but it's a feast of St. Cuthbert. It's St. Cuthbert's Day. And about 1300 years ago, Cuthbert set off from Melrose down the valley with a novice, a young man who he was teaching. Now, Cuthbert knew all the Psalms, 150 of them, by heart. And he would begin to recite some of them, and then he asked the young man, the novice, to say the next verse. And sometimes the novice might get it right, sometimes not quite right, but he would work and we did practice on learning the Psalms. And as they were going down the valley, it was a bright, lovely, clear day in December. And St. Cuthbert was teaching this young man all about the things in the scriptures, in the Bible, but also he was also teaching him about nature and all the things around him and all about the birds and the bushes and the trees and the valleys and the rocks. So he's a very knowledgeable man. And he was teaching as he walked along, a peripatetic walking along. Now, on the journey, it was time for one Friday, and it was feast. It was sorry, it was the day of fasting. And so, as they're walking along, they had nothing to eat all day because it was a fast day. And as they were going through some of the villages, some of the people are very poor, but were always ready to give some food to men walking along, and particularly to holy men. But St. Cuthbert said, well, we can't eat anything today because it's Friday, it's a fast day. And the young man, the novice, was dismayed. Oh, I was getting so hungry. And St. Cuthbert, when he stopped at some of these villages and talked to the people, he would he had a St. John's Gospel, and it was bound in a red leather, and he took it out of his leather satchel, and he was apparently reading about the feeding of the 5,000, but the young man noticed that he actually wasn't reading it, he was actually reciting it from memory. And the next day, as they walked along, and the young man was very hungry. He noticed that St. Cuthbert hadn't brought any provisions. And Cuthbert said to himself, where can we find something to eat in the wilderness? Where can we find something? And the young man looked around and said, well, there's no nuts, there's no berries, it's December, what can we do? And so St. Cuthbert, he stood up straight and he held out his arms, each side of his arms, to form like a cross with his arms outstretched. And the young man, he looked down and the sun was shining, and he could see St. Cuthbert with his arms outstretched in the shape of a cross. But just above there was another smaller cross, shadow of a cross, and he looked up into the sky, and there he saw an eagle. And the eagle dived down into the river and came up with a large, lovely salmon, and dropped it almost at the foot of the young man and St. Cuthbert's. And the young man thought, oh, salmon, I just love salmon. And he rushed over to get this fish that the eagle had retrieved out of the river, out of the water. And St. Cuthbert said, don't you steal from the fishermen. There's enough there for more than we need. Cut the salmon in half and give half back to the fisherman, to the eagle. But very reluctantly, the young man, he took out his knife and he cut the fish in two and took half of it back to the eagle that was sitting just on the edge of the river. And the eagle didn't fly away. He's got this glint in his eye, and eventually the eagle, he picked up the half salmon and flew off, leaving the young man and Cuthbert with the half salmon. And they walked on a bit further and came to a village, and there was a house there, a cottage there, and there was a poor family there. And they gave the half salmon to the wife who broiled it, and they had a big feast that night. There's enough in the fish for the family and for Cuthbert and the young man. And then Cuthbert, he took a stick and he drew the sign of the fish in the dust on the ground. Sign of a fish, which was an ancient symbol for the early Christians, particularly when they were persecuted. And in Greek, it's ichthus. And each of those letters in Greek stand for letters that spell Jesus, Christos, Huios, Theos, Zoter, which means in English, Jesus Christ, God, Son, Saviour. And that's the story of St. Cuthbert and the eagle.
Beautiful. John, where is Hans? I can't see him on my
Hans
tiny
was
phone.
here. He's there. He's not on his he's there, but not he hasn't got his video on. So Hans,
Okay.
if you can unmute and put your video on, we would love to hear a story from you if you're up for it.
Hello, Hans.
Hello,
Earth to Hans.
Hans. Well, we try our best. Right. So
I have a
Hans.
story.
Cool.
I put it in the
Thank
chat,
you.
sorry.
Okay. So if Hans, if you could come with us after Norman, because I think there's only Norman left here, so, and I think we
And
need
thanks.
Canada.
Yeah, well, now I want to know what Hans' story is, but all I
Yeah.
see is...
Well, we'll get it after yours, Norman.
Okay, then, I'll
So
tell
Norman,
myself.
you're in
Yes.
deep water right now.
I am in very deep water.
So we're going to drop you in, if that's okay with you, Evita. We're going to drop Norman
That
into
is
a
totally
situation.
fine. And just a quick thank you to Manuela, who's graciously said she was just happy to listen. So next time we have to make sure she goes first.
Okay.
Go, Norman. Let's have a whale
Okay,
of time with you.
by the way, I'm not worried about deep water. Storytellers are never out of their depth. So, well, the story I have is actually two stories, but it's not as long as you might think. When I just went and got some water, and because I was thirsty, but I was just able to walk just over there, hold out the glass, and have a glass and a drink of water. But where I grew up in the Ottawa Valley, water was not easy to come by because we did not have plumbing in our house. The well was a good 70 feet away. And each day we would have to take some buckets and go down to the well, let the bucket down into the well and let it fill and then pull it up. We didn't have a pump until much later when we could get one of the old antique ones, the pump. And I learned a principle of life from that old pump, which was it wouldn't work unless you put some water in. And then once it was gurgling, the water would come up out of the pipe. And so you got to put in a little to get a lot more. And that was one of my first life lessons was from our well. But in the wintertime, the pipe froze and we had to put our pails down and pull it up. And sometimes it was awfully cold to be pulling that rope. And we had to get water for a family of 9 people. So every day, water for 9 people. And on wash day, there was more. So I appreciate water. I really do. Just turn on a tap and there is water. But in the story, Lim, God of the River, was a different story. It's an older time. And there was a young girl who was an orphan, and she went to live with a family. And the family, as these stories often have a habit, did not treat her well. They gave her the hard work. She had to work in the garden. And most of all, they made her carry the water from the river, which was a good distance away. And not only that, she had to bring cold, clear water. Because. But the water is not cold, it is not clear. Well, if you do not bring it cold and clear, said the stepmother, then you will get a beating. So what could she do? She picked up the buckets. You always have 2 buckets. Why? They have to balance. And that's another life lesson. It's easier to carry the weight when there is 1 bucket in one hand and 1 bucket in the other. So, but Violet was the girl's name, and she had a secret, and this was the secret. She could call up the creatures of the forest, and so she went down to the river, and with the 2 buckets, and she stood there by the edge of the river, and she called out, "Lim, Lim, Lim, God of the river, it is Violet, Violet, bring me some cold, clear water." And out of the water there arose a great scaled fish. And in the mouth of the great fish was 2 buckets of cold, clear water. And Violet took the 1 bucket and the other, and she went back. And this time the family was amazed to taste the sweetest, the coldest, the clearest water they'd ever drunk. Well, things went for her a little better after that, but curiosity consumed the family. Where did Violet go to get that cold, clear water? And so one day they told her, "You can go to the market today. You can buy something special, and there's a few things we would like you to bring." And so she was very happy to take the long journey into the town. But while she was gone, the young boy followed. I'm sorry, I forgot a part of the story. Young girl went down to the river. Young boy saw her stand by the river and call out, "Lim, Lim, God of the river, it's Violet. Bring me some cold, clear water." And the young boy saw the great fish rise out of the water, saw the 2 buckets of cold, clear water that the young Violet took in either hand, and he ran away, hiding so she could not see him. And then she came back. And then the next morning, she was given the task of going into the marketplace, and she was very happy to go, as I said. And while she was gone for a long, long while. And when she got back, dinner had already been made, and food was cold, but sitting on the table. But when she saw what was on the plate, it was fish. She looked at the fish, the sad, sorrowful look in her face. She did not eat anything. She simply turned around and she ran down to the river, where in the setting sun, the river water gleamed gold, red like blood. And the young girl called out to the river, "Lim, Lim, God of the river, bring me some cold, clear water." But all that happened is the water boiled and bubbled and turned redder. And when the great fish did not appear, Violet threw herself into the water and was never seen again. But it's said to this very day, though, if you go to that river when the sun is setting and the water seems to glow like blood itself, you might hear faintly in the evening breeze the song, "Lim, Lim, God of the river, it is Violet, Violet, bring me some cold, clear water."
Oh, wow.
Oh, that was beautiful, Norman. Now,
Oh,
I'm
and
not
I
sure.
forgot
Well,
to give credit.
Hands has disappeared on us. So, Manuela. I'm
Hello.
sorry, I shouldn't be taken over here, Victor.
You're a
Oh no,
natural.
dude. I'm
Manuela,
still.
have you got a story, with even the vaguest connection with water for us?
Yes, I do.
And
But I was
you've got
aware of
about 5 minutes to do it in.
that's why perhaps it's a legend from Tuscany about a lake, but I'm not sure I'm going to manage in 5 minutes. So I'll try and race it.
Do
Okay.
your best. We're not so fast.
Okay. So yes, I have a tale to share with you, a tale from my own Umbrian Tuscan borderlands, where I'm currently living between Chianti and Umbria in Italy. And it's a legend that explains the origin of Lake Trasimeno, which lies just a short journey from where I live. And maybe the next time I'll tell you a bit more about the lake, but I'll go straight into the legend. Okay. So once, not twice, not 3 times, but once upon a time, on a summer morning, the sun cast golden ripples across the waters of a nameless lake. Nestled among the verdant hills of Etruria, Prince Trasimeno, son of the mighty King Tyrrhenus, or Tirreno in Italian, had ridden ahead of his hunting party, seeking a moment of solitude away from the constant duties of court life. His horse's hooves fell silent as they reached the pebbled shore. The prince dismounted, drawn by the lake's tranquil beauty, and as he knelt by the water's edge to quench his thirst, a melodious laugh floated across the surface like music on the breeze. Trasimeno raised his head, his breath catching in his throat. There in the center of the lake, a vision appeared. A nymph with flowing hair, the color of chestnuts, and eyes that held the very essence of the water's depths. She glided through the lake with grace of a water lily, just like a ballerina dancing on the surface. "Who goes there?" called the nymph, her voice as clear as mountain spring. "What mortal dares to approach my sacred waters?" Trasimeno stood tall, his royal bearing evident even in his simple hunting garb. "I am Trasimeno, son of Tyreneus, and I," he faltered, overwhelmed by her beauty. I meant no intrusion, fair nymph. I was merely travelling and found myself enchanted by this place." The nymph studied him carefully. She scrutinized him, and circling closer, she said, "I am Agila, guardian of these waters. Many travellers pass, Prince Trasimeno, but very few see the true beauty that lies beneath the surface." Day after day, Trasimeno returned to the lake. Each time, Agila would emerge, first cautious, and then increasingly eager to meet the young prince. They shared stories of their worlds, he of the bustling Etruscan cities and royal courts, she of the hidden underwater groves and starlit dances of the nymphs. On the seventh day, as the setting of the sun painted the lake in hues of amber and gold, Trasimeno arrived with a beautiful garland of wildflowers. "These are beautiful," said Agila, touching the delicate petals. "But they will wither and die, unlike the eternal treasures of my realm below." "Then show me," Trasimeno whispered, his eyes never leaving hers. "Show me your world, Agila." She hesitated, trailing her fingers through the water. "My world is not for mortals, dear prince. The depths would claim you." "I would risk 1,000 times to be where you are," he replied, removing his cloak. "Trasimeno, no! What are you doing?" Agila cried, reaching towards him. "The currents are treacherous to those not born of water." But the prince, blinded by the love and desire to join her, dived into the waters. He swam strongly at first, his powerful arms cutting through the surface. Agila circled him, her laughter turning into concern as she noticed his strokes were weakening. She urged, "Return to shore, my dear prince," panic rising in her voice. "You cannot breathe as I do." "I will reach you, I will reach you," gasped Trasimeno, struggling against the suddenly dark waters. I must. Agila lunged forward as the prince slipped beneath the surface, his arms no longer fighting the weight of the water. She cradled his face in her hands, pressing her lips to his in a desperate attempt to share her breath, her gift of water life. But alas, it was too late. "Beloved," she whispered, tears mingling with the waters around them. What have you done? What have you done? As night fell, the lake grew still. The hunting party called for their prince, their torches reflecting off the silent waters, but Trasimeno did not answer. Deep below, Agila held the prince in her arms, singing lamentations that rose as bubbles to the surface. Her sisters gathered round, their ethereal forms illuminating the darkness. He cannot stay here, said the eldest nymph gently. His body belongs to the earth. Then I shall make this lake his eternal resting place, Agila declared, her voice strong despite her grief. And I will remain his guardian for all time. The nymphs joined hands, their magic rippling outward, and the lake expanded, growing deeper, deeper, and wider, wider with each passing moment, transforming it into a fitting monument for a prince. From this day forward, Agila proclaimed, these waters shall bear his name, Trasimeno. Let all who pass know of Trasimeno, the prince who loved too deeply, and of the nymph who will never forget him. To this day, Lake Trasimeno sits nestled in the heart of Umbria, in waters sometimes calm, but sometimes stirred by unexpected currents. And on quiet nights, when the moon is full, you can still hear Agila's song rising from the depths. A love song for her prince, a lament for what might have been, and a warning to those who would underestimate the power of water and the power of love. My story did I tell, in your heart let it swell. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That was beautiful. We went from absolute hilarity to a very deep love story. Thank you, everyone, so much. And thank you, John and Baba and
Well, thank you.
Keith and everyone. Let's jump. I know I'm rushing, but I think we owe it
Yeah,
to
I
Liz
need
to not.
to. I just need to say what's coming up. But first of all, a round of applause for well, that wonderful story at the end there, which actually took us into deep, deep water. And Evita,
Beautiful.
who without her inspiration tonight would never have happened. So
Thank
thank
you.
you,
I was going to
Evita.
go, originally we were going to go with the flow and go for 2 hours, but then we saw that Liz also has something on, so I was
Yeah, well,
rushing everyone.
we're not running too far into hers, so well, you can go to Liz. But what's coming up here on Friday is the spinner, which is and she's a beautiful teller for her stories for children. But on Sunday, and I want you all there. There's no excuses. We will not accept any excuses for absence, including my dog at my homework. Is our 5th anniversary of the world. So we realized, Mike and I were talking, we realized that this Sunday is our 5th anniversary of the first broadcast of the World Storytelling Cafe. And so I think Mike Rust is going to be doing his World Story Round, and so this Sunday at 6 o'clock, it would be fantastic, and we will have no time restrictions. We'll just rattle on for as long as it takes. Meanwhile, we very much had the world here. I would like to have had Omar, but of course the theme is deep water, and if you stand on the walls of Marrakesh, all you see beyond there is sand and desert. But thank you, Waleed, for flying the magic carpet tonight. Thank you, Manuela, Norman, Baden, the Keiths, the multiple Keiths, Babasi, and of course Evita, who is in the midst of her European tour from Australasia. And, no, it's fantastic, and tonight's nights like tonight make me feel that we're part of a world community of storytellers. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Manuela, too.
Thank
Okay, love
you.
you all.
Yeah. See you on Friday.
Bye,
See
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye all. See you
Bye.
again.
See
Bye.
you.
John,
Yeah.
have you seen? I sent you an email.
I probably didn't see it, but I will look.
Have a look.
I
No
will.
rush. It's nothing urgent.
When did you see it? Send it.
The last time I saw you, so quite a while ago. About a
Oh,
few
well,
weeks
I
ago.
will put Manuela in my search and
No
see.
rush. No rush.
John, real quick before we get
It's been a
disconnected.
bit crazy. I'm in Romania at the moment, so
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
I've been to a school this morning, fantastic little school down in the valley, and
Lovely.
so I'm up on my mountain in Romania, next in the forest.
I gathered as much with all your traveling.
Yeah,
But
so
If
love you all.
have pics of
So
me.
I will check that email.
yeah, don't worry. Nothing
And all
urgent.
I've got to do is find this thing that says end.
Real
Now,
quick.
Baba wants to say something. Wait,
Yeah,
wait.
Baba C, what do you want to say, my man?
Well, I need pictures from the festival. I am remiss. I need pictures from the festival, especially pics with me. I am signing up for grants, and the pictures from the festival will be very helpful. And I
Okay,
need a letter
well, go
of
to the
appreciation from you, John.
lift them off the of the WhatsApp chat. D has put loads of black and whites up, but there's loads going on, and they're all on them. And I'll see what I can find for you and
Would
send you
appreciate it.
from other things. But
And I need a letter of appreciation from you.
a letter of appreciation. You
Yeah, 'cause
think I'm going to
doing
send?
grants.
You think I've got time to send a letter of appreciation?
I
I
know
can
you.
write
of
it
course.
for you, John, if you want. I'll write one for you.
if you can write it, I'll sign it. No, I'll write a letter of appreciation.
I'll accept any positive letters from anyone. With the,
No, send let's everyone send a letter of appreciation
I
about
would
this.
appreciate it.
You know,
No,
we know about the grant situation, so let's
I
just do
took one off.
everything we can to get Baba C's grant.
Yeah, please, because I don't want to take it for granted. But I had to get
All right.
So what's the grant for?
your
What's
first
the
time.
grant for?
Say again.
What's the grant for?
It's called Walk to Get. Well, no, I just sent that one off. So what's happening is that our humanities and our arts and humanities organizations are setting up grants, and I want to get a grant to do things in the community and to tell stories. And I'm applying for another grant to help me go to schools, and so I can defray the cost of having me come to the school or go to the schools.
Okay, that was important to know because we'll put in a little bit about how we visited 5,000 children in Marrakesh and all that kind of
Yes,
stuff.
yes.
Yeah,
So
so that's good. And we consider visiting schools as ideologically sound.
Yeah.
I got my fingers crossed. We don't know where the schools are headed in this country right now. But
Yeah, we won't have that discussion because it's all been recorded.
No.
But, Okay. Now
All right.
And the ways.
I'm just trying to get. I can't find the leave button.
I can press it.
Oh no, I've got that.
Top right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Evita, for
Hi.
just you know,
It was fun.
this tonight wouldn't have happened without you.
I'm so
Thank you.
glad that I was able to make it.
Yes, me
Yes,
too.
I am. Let's go see Liz.
Let's go see Liz. Well, I won't.
Where do I go to see Liz?
I'll probably just collapse now.
Where do I go to see Liz? I am so
Just
out
go
of-
to her site, I think. Then there's a link there in Facebook, isn't there?
Okay, Facebook and I have been having issues, but I'll see what I can do. Everyone take
Okay,
care.
I'll see if I can send you a link. Okay.
All right. And for Waleed, if that's Waleed flying the magic carpet today, thank you and see out. I'll explain that to you later.
Asante.
Sakitu.